Welcome to the Jump Shots from the Goal Line pod. We're coming back at you after a relatively slow sports week. Obviously, we have the Kyler Murray contract that broke loose this week. We had the MLB All-Star game because everybody watched that. And then we have some sick Pac-12 preview action for you. We are starting a new series going forward where we are going to highlight each and every conference in the Power Five the next few weeks. We may or may not have some guests join us if we can pull that off and go through each conference, kind of go over each team and see what to expect on the coming season. But first and foremost, I'm obviously joined by my main man, John. John, how's it going, buddy? How's your week been?
Week's been wild. The house has been loose at best. We got AC stuff going on. It's hot as hell in Arizona, in case nobody knew that it was hot in the desert. So yeah, it's been a wild week, honestly. Like, it's been all over the place at the house, but you're right. Sports week's kind of, like the Kyler deal, this, that, whatever. Basically you're starting to rely on, bad TV because like you really don't even have the normal stuff going. So you just kind of rely on the scraps. I've been digging into YouTube, watching a lot of pizza reviews. I'm sure everybody else probably watches those all the time before. For whatever reason, I've been recently watching those, and I'm just actually interested by like the random characters that come in and out of it. Really stupid. It's the dumbest TV, but like that's how desperate I've been.
Yeah, dude, I don't blame you. Really, really slow week. My week was pretty uneventful, except for when was it that I texted you? Was it Wednesday night? No, it was Thursday night, right? That I texted you, and some crazy things happening in the Arizona desert skies. I was driving to go pick up. Yeah, dude.
We're burying the lead here. Like, this is actually all I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, screw the Pac-12 preview, but
yeah, no. Guys, if you were here for the sports, just turn it off. We're going to talk about aliens for a
while. Driving down one of the roads in eastern Tucson, going to go pick up my stepson from a summer camp thing, and minding my own business, listening to some music, jamming out, and lo and behold, I see 3 lights in the sky shaped like a triangle. And when I say shaped like a triangle, this isn't a small triangle, guys. Like, we're talking at least like 6 inches each way in what would you call that? Diameter, perimeter, whatever, in the sky. So if you can imagine, this thing is 6 inches in my windshield. So in actuality, this thing is massive, right? And I got 3 lights, and all of a sudden they start moving. And these lights are not flashing, so it is not a commercial airline, and also probably not a military aircraft, because again, due to regulations, those bad boys have to have flashing lights so that other aircraft does not run into it by accident. And those things start moving, and they're not just moving like, singularity. They are moving in succession, and they start moving for about 5 seconds. And before I can even grab my phone, this thing has probably moved a good like 5 inches through the sky, and quicker than I can think, it just disappears. And I was shook, dude. I was like, what the hell was that? This thing was massive. It was a giant triangular like shape in the Arizona sky over Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And I did not know what to think. I immediately called you. You were dealing with some AC trouble, sweating your balls off. And I know for a fact I saw an unidentified flying object. I'm not saying it was aliens. I am saying it was aliens. I won't lie to you. I completely think it was aliens. But that thing, it was very, if our listeners have ever, been watching History Channel on a Saturday afternoon because you have nothing better to do, and you came across the Phoenix Lights phenomenon of like 1998, that's exactly what it looked like. This bad boy was huge. It was moving, and then it was gone. John, I know we couldn't connect on Thursday night because you were dealing with the AC stuff, man, but what do you think?
Well, I first just have to get a couple important questions because haters will say, but Dugan, it was over the Air Force Base. How do you respond? How do you react? Because like I hear what you're saying, but like right, the cynic is definitely like, yeah, but it's over the Air Force Base. It's definitely some sort of Air Force thing. And I know you're saying that, they have to have certain lights, but the government isn't exactly always telling us the truth about everything. I suppose the Air Force is no different. So the cynicism that I have is, or anybody I think would have, is just that it's around the Air Force Base.
Sure. Yeah, no, and haters, I know you're listening, and one of the haters is definitely my wife. Because when I woke up the next day and told her, do you remember I called you? And she did not, because she was like literally dead ass asleep when she answered and immediately hung up. But her first thought too was like, well, what do you like? That had to be like just an airplane, right? No. Airplanes, first of all, are not as large as what this looked like in the sky. This thing was absolutely massive. Two, I go back to the flashing lights example I mentioned before. The regulations that commercial airlines have, or even military like aircraft have, is you have to have the flashing lights so that it doesn't impede any kind of flight plan of any other plane, right? And this thing was moving all together. It was not like, one light was moving faster than the other. It didn't look like a star because it was moving again, like, and moving rapidly enough that I'm like, okay, that's not just a star. And within the triangular shape, there was no stars. And then out of nowhere, there was stars. If this was a military craft, all I got to say is anybody that decides to mess with the U.S., be warned. We are coming, and we're coming big and in charge and in large, because this thing was massive.
And in triangles. We're coming in triangles now,
dude. I don't know if you've ever seen Kung Pao or the Fist, but those pyramid shaped alien craft that were in that movie, very similar to this, except much more terrifying because it was in real life. And I'm not going to lie to our audience. Like, I love alien stuff. I have definitely been known to sit there and watch Ancient Aliens, watching George Tsoukalos and his crazy ass hair, go on and on about aliens. And, anybody that knows me is probably like, oh, Duke, and you're probably just like, not making stuff up, but just wishing that this was an alien aircraft. But I'm just telling you right now, I've never seen anything like this in the sky before, and it was terrifying.
Well, I'll just say, for one, if you live in like a big city, like, this is what you're missing out on. There's no alien speculation when you can't even see the stars or when you have a skyline, right? This is why you live out in the wild, wild west, so that you can ponder the bigger questions in life, stare at the stars, wonder if they are stars, wonder if there's more, get a little X-Files on you, wonder if the truth is out there. But like, this is kind of what you're missing. And Arizona's always got this going on. Like, right, there's like you mentioned it, the Phoenix lights, and then there's a ton of stuff like that's allegedly happened in Flagstaff, in Tucson. There's always different sightings and all this stuff, and I generally attribute a lot of it to the Air Force Base. But look, man, it's a big world out there, and you're kind of crazy if you think like nothing's going on. But at the same time, we don't have like a lot of empirical evidence that anything's going on here. So,
and listen here, man, like our neighbors to the south in Mexico, they always have sightings of unidentified flying objects. Utah has Skywalker Ranch. They always have stuff going on up there. Area 51 is only like, I think like a 7-hour drive from Tucson. Crap like this happens all the time, and I'm just saying, you can sit here and say, oh, well, it happened over an Air Force base. Sightings like this primarily happen around Air Force bases. And take that for what you will. It could be, we're testing out new technology, or it could be, our neighbors within the universe are keeping tabs on us. And I choose to believe the latter for sure.
I mean, this is big. We've completely flipped the script, and now this is a completely journalistic and investigative reporting podcast.
Yeah, listen here. We don't stick to just sports on this podcast. As anybody that's listened to the last 10 episodes knows, we'll bring it hot and heavy however we can. And I'm just saying, if y'all start seeing some things in the sky going forward, your main man Dugan tried to warn you. And I promise you on everything, I'm not making this up. I was very shook. I called probably like 6 people just because I wanted to get it out there quick enough so I didn't make sure that I thought I myself was crazy. I was like, dude, this crap just happened.
I got to get the word out. I got to let people know that the streets are not safe.
Yes. So
I always said, like, just come take me though. Like, I'm in. Like, you know, like, I mean, I got some stuff going on, but like, none of it's that important. You know what I mean?
Listen,
like,
bro,
none of it's that important.
I too like to live on the dangerous side, but if we get into probing, I'm out. You know, if the rumors are true.
No one's pro probing, but I mean, that's propaganda to keep you away from all the cool snacks. They got to have good food, cool stuff they can show you. I think most of the time they bring it back, right? So, I mean, it's like, I just want to poke around a little bit, don't want them to. I want to do, you know, which I'm not sure what I'm saying at this point, but, you know, I just want to see it. I just want to see it.
Listen, bro, I'm just trying to see the world from a different point of view without having to pay Virgin Galactic so much money out of my pocket to go do it.
Exactly. Right? I'm not trying to pay Elon Musk prices to get the Aladdin a whole new world view of things for a bit.
That's right, dude. That's where I'm at as well. So, hey, if you're listening out there, I know this isn't radio, but if our Universal brothers and sisters out there, if you're listening, John Henningson's down. All right. He is so down to clown. Come pick up my dude right now. Take him for a galactic tour. Show him what's out there, and he can report back on the next episode. Perfect, dude. Well,
yeah. I was like, I was gonna make a plea, but you made it for me. So I'm like, well, I guess he's got this. Like, I appreciate it.
I'm just your intergalactic ambassador right now, dude. That's
I just
all.
hope they don't get confused, and then all of a sudden you're probed and.
I'm basically your travel agent right now.
Yeah,
right?
two Johns here. It gets confusing, probably the translation intergalactic. And
again,
sure.
our neighbors in this universe, it's John Henningson. John Wayne Henningson would like to be pulled up out of this earth, go visit the universe, and come back. The comeback part is very large. My client would like to come back and be able to prophesize to the rest of the world. Okay. The comeback part is very important, and no probes. We're writing that into the contract. All right. This is just like Kyler. Kyler Murray had a lot of different things in his contract. He got paid this week. You don't even have to pay John. He's not looking for a check. He just wants the experience.
That's right. 100%. Just a couple days off work. That's really all I'm asking.
That's it, man. That's it. Awesome, dude. Yeah. But outside of that, my week's been pretty slow. Obviously I did start, the new season of F-Boy Island on HBO because that's what's hot right now. And let me tell you, if our listeners have not watched HBO's F-Boy Island, you're missing out because that show has it all. If you're into trash TV, and like John was saying earlier, 'tis the season for trash TV, this is the show for you. Incredible cast of individuals, of characters, smoking hot ladies, and drama for your mama. Let me tell you, it is a fantastic season. John, I know you and your lady have been watching. What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's eye candy for everybody, right? It's everybody's completely vapid, empty, and shallow, which is exactly what I would want from any reality television. I don't want any thought. I don't want any feelings. Of course, the girls pretend to have feelings, but come on. You know what you said. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Stop. That's why I hate The Bachelor. Is like I hate that they pretend they have. I'm like, I don't want you to have feelings. Like no one should have feelings here.
No. And what I love about this show is it's very much not like The Bachelor, where these dudes are coming out and they are very much openly F-boys, and they're just out here scheming for cash. All right, and if they can get in a few makeout sessions in between, hey, more power to them. Phenomenal show to sit down and watch with your lady. Because like you said, eye candy for all, drama for all, and it's probably the best trash TV out there right now. Screw 90 Day Fiance, F-Boy Island. That's where it's at.
Yeah, it's not TV. Dugan, it's HBO.
That's right. Home box office, baby.
Yeah, so you know they're bringing it. Yeah, they deliver. It's amazing. They got their hands on reality TV, and they even did that better. I'm like, HBO, like, how do you do it? Like, you guys just absolutely can. And honestly, like, why did they never like it? This is the first time it feels like. I mean, they probably tried with like other iterations that I'm missing on or something, but like they just have a comedian doing this, like making fun of them right to their face. Like, that's perfect. Like, don't pretend like to be nice to them or whatever, and just make fun of them to their face. This is what they signed up for. It's the stupidest shit you could do in life. Have at it. Like, you can't go onto the show and think like.
And this season there are multiple dudes with girlfriends outside of the show. Hilarious. Nikki Glazer is the host. Spoiler alert. I'm not telling you
that coming. Spoiler.
I'm not telling you who it is. They also bring back a couple of the great ones from last season too. No spoilers. I'm not telling you who it is, but if you watch season 1, you can probably take a guess who it is. My wife is just completely bought in because the guy they brought back from last season is her for sure crush. And if he was ever if she was ever on the show, I would be definitely kicked to the curb. That's all I'm going to say. So definitely check it out. If you got a moment or two, trying to binge watch some crappy, TV, that's the move, especially during the dead period of sports. Cause nobody would let's put it this way. Do you want to watch F-Boy Island where it's just nonstop drama and like eye candy? Or do you want to watch baseball? What would you pick? It's an easy choice.
I can just tell you for sure what I have been doing. And it hasn't been baseball. So
that's right.
Which by the way, baseball too. Like, if baseball screws you out, right? Like, if you're like a millennial streamer and you don't pay the big bucks for regional cable anymore, like, you can't even really watch your own home team. So like,
nor would you want to.
Screw you, baseball. Like, you don't even like give me the opportunity, because I probably realistically would throw on the Diamondbacks quite a bit. I always liked having them on as background noise and that sort of thing. But I'm like, I have to switch like my whole lifestyle, like just to accommodate baseball. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you don't have to do that for F-Boy Island. Let me tell you.
Sure don't. Comes with my freaking cell phone.
Yeah, exactly, bro. Like, hey, it's there waiting for you. So, don't watch the MLB All-Star game. F-Boy Island's got more drama. I can tell you that much for sure. So, perfect, man. Jumping into the sports stuff that did happen this week. I kind of hit on it earlier. Kyler Murray did sign his contract. He finally got paid. Lamar Jackson is still waiting in the shadows, waiting for his contract. But our little friend Kyler did get a 5-year, $230 million contract. He's locked into the desert for at least the next 5 years. What were your thoughts on that contract, man? I thought it was definitely a lot of money for somebody that, one, can't really stay healthy, and two, hasn't accomplished as much as his hype would make you believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's that he's the next guy in line. So you knew he was going to get his money, because this is what happens if you have a quarterback that, especially if he's young, he's definitely shown to be dynamic at times. And he's just the next guy up. So the quarterbacks get their money as long as they prove to be whatever is deemed as a franchise guy, right? Like, all of these guys get paid at some point. Baker got his money, right? Like, I mean, these guys are going to get their money. And so Kyler's the next in line. He gets paid. If I'm a Cardinals fan, am I super excited about it? No, because of all the reasons you mentioned. Like, he hasn't particularly stayed healthy. The offense seems to fizzle it out, whether you put that on him, whether you put that on Cliff, whatever the case may be. But this is just kind of what happens. And if you're the Cardinals, you sort of just have to do it. But if you're a Cardinals fan, I think you're kind of like, okay, like, I guess we're going to ride this out for a while. Presumably we're going to get at least one more coach during this duration, and we'll see if they can get the pairing right.
Yeah, I will say this about Kyler. I mean, he is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL when he's available. Can definitely, sling the rock. He can run around with it. He looks like a toddler that just stole $5 from his mom when he runs, but he's dynamic. And, the Arizona Cardinals haven't had a huge amount of success at the quarterback position. They got a couple good years out of Carson Palmer. They got a Super Bowl run out of Kurt Warner. But outside of that, we're looking at the Matt Leinerts and a few other guys that just never really panned out. So similar to like the Browns, you do have to go out and pay your guy once you have him, or, some of these other quarterbacks. And who knows, maybe Kyler can stay healthy. Maybe he gets a new coach and he can, really turn that franchise around. But like anything else, the window kind of starts now, right? Like he's got to win the first couple of years because the J.J. Watts of the world, the DeAndre Hopkins of the world, those contracts are not going to come as easy as they did while he was on that rookie scale contract. And now you're building strictly around a guy that is going to be making $40+ million a year at the quarterback position. So, for the Cardinals' sake, I hope he stays healthy. I hope that, they can find a coach that can maximize his talents. And we'll see, man. They've come close a couple times with him to being very, very successful. It just seems like something always gets in the way of that success. So we will see.
Yeah, I'll say real quick. I mean, you make a good. No, yeah, so you're okay. And you make a good point, though. I mean, if you are a Cardinals fan, though, you really have never had ownership of a guy from his inception, right? Like from the quarterback position where it really worked out. Like you mentioned, Kurt Warner came in late, and the Carson Palmers. Those guys are like, midway through their careers or pushing towards the retirement tour. By the time you grasp those guys. I mean, they had a guy when I was a kid, Tim Rosenbach, who was like a pretty good quarterback, who then left to join the rodeo. I mean, that's the kind of luck the Cardinals have at the quarterback position. So, if he's not leaving for baseball, maybe there's just a sigh of relief, and you're just glad that you have a guy that you can call your quarterback and you can rock that jersey and at least get 7-8 years out of it and see what the experiment looks like. And obviously, there's going to be plenty of time to retool this roster, but you're also right in that it gets a lot harder when you start spending $40 million on a quarterback. It is what it is. A lot of teams are doing that, but it's certainly much easier. We saw with Mahomes, like when you have him on that rookie scale deal, to put a bunch of talent around him, and you can live off that for a while. So it'll be see how it plays out. But I guess all in all, you have to be excited just because you don't really get quarterbacks. You're not the Colts.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, he's not Kevin Kolb. So this is a good thing for the Cardinals.
Sure. God, that one burns. Yeah, that one. Cardinal fans have to hate Kevin Kolb.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I mean, the guy is a proven commodity. I just hope he stays healthy. And at 5'9", chances are he's probably going to get hurt again. Knock on wood, Cardinals fans. I'm hearing you out. I don't want to rain or piss on your parade, but hey, facts are facts. He has had injury issues, but you can't deny the talent. You can't deny the dynamic ability of that kid. Like he can definitely turn it on when he has opportunity. So we'll see what happens the next couple of years. And, I think that really is the window. The next couple of years, we'll see what he can do. Because after that, like we keep saying, it gets a lot tougher. So, yeah, outside of that, I don't think really a whole lot has happened in the sports universe. We are still waiting on Kevin Durant news. I think we'll be waiting for a very long time if it ever happens. Football training camp should be starting up here in about a week or two. I think it's 2 weeks. And then that'll start, getting hot and heavy. College football, kind of the same ordeal. Training camp will start popping up around the same time as the NFL. And then we'll be full swing, right? We'll be back in the thick of things again. But in the meantime, we want to bring you guys some information on these conferences. And we thought, what better conference to start out with than the one that we watch week after week, because we are Arizona Wildcat fans on this podcast, the Pac-12, right? And the Pac-12 is still the Pac-12, at least for a year or two, or until, it just completely blows up in a Pac-12 fashion and teams start jettisoning for other conferences, much like USC and UCLA have. But we do have a season coming up, and it should be a juicy one for sure with the big moves that USC have made. Oregon has a new head coach. You still have Utah out there. Arizona's getting better, and then Arizona State is absolutely imploding. So almost as much drama as F-Boy Island in the Pac-12. John, did you have any thoughts just before we even get started on our first team, just about the Pac-12 and what you're excited about for the season this year?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the biggest thing is I'm just going to kind of try to embrace it and enjoy it while we still have it, because this version of it, these are its last days. There's no doubt about it. That's definitely the lead, right? Is it's going to get blown up. It's just a matter of how. I mean, some rumors are saying they're going to try to keep the Pac-10 together. Obviously, there's like all these different stories pulling them. Are these handful of teams going to the Big 12, or are these teams still trying to angle for the Big 10? All that aside, even though that's certainly the bigger story in the long term, like rather than speculate about all of that or blah 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 blah, I'm just going to try to enjoy these matchups while we still have them. Right, the classic traditional stuff, as traditional as it can be, because it was Pac-10 when I was growing up, and then we added the 12. But just to get those classic matchups that we're used to, kind of hold on to them, because down the road, those are maybe we get them scheduled throughout conference games, but they're gone. So just clinging on to those for dear life, and hoping like in the last year or two, like we can get a push, right? We can get a push from a couple of these teams and make it interesting, and maybe play on the big stage, and who knows, maybe they can bounce that, help leverage that into, hey, this is a conference that people want a piece of, and bring some value somewhere else. So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I guess we would be remiss without mentioning, right? Like the news did come out, I believe either late last week or early this week, that the Pac-12 and the Big 12 did decide not to merge. That's no shocking news to me. I don't think a merger of the conferences as a whole was ever going to happen. I think the Big 12 sees the writing on the wall that they can just pick and choose what teams they can actually add for revenue purposes. And, those teams, it looks like to be the four corner teams, right? So your Arizona States, your Utahs, and your Colorado going back to the Big 12. And that seems to be where things are headed. I know ESPN has a lot of skin in the game trying to keep the Pac-12 alive. They're trying to leverage a dying conference into a new media deal where obviously ESPN gets the bulk of the shares. But I know the real sticking point so far has been that Oregon and Washington, they don't want a fair share of the pie. They want what they think they bring to the conference, which, to be fair, Oregon does bring a lot, right? But Washington seems to think that they're like an SEC caliber team, that they should get a bigger piece of the pie than, like, say, a Utah or a Arizona State or an Arizona. And obviously that's never going to work, right? So I think little by little, maybe this week, the coming weeks, you're going to start seeing definitely teams from the conference putting it out there that they are going to be joining, whether it's the Big 12 or I know there's some ACC chatter out there, which is really strange. But you're going to start seeing some of these teams jettison off. And I think you made a great point that, hey, you know what? Let's enjoy what we have in the meantime. The Pac-12 has definitely been the conference that I grew up with. I think they bring a lot of value to any conference that they end up joining, the teams within it at least. And the next season or two, let's just make sure that we increase our value with some good football. And it definitely seems like we got some teams within the conference that are making some big time moves and could be some players in the national stage. I think where we will begin our journey, we'll start in the Pac-12 North. We will go to the city of Berkeley. Obviously, the Cal Golden Bears, right? The Cal Bears, headed by Justin Wilcox, they finished 5-7 last year. Obviously, they were kind of an up and down team. They would get a couple wins here, then they would take an L, to get a win, take an L. They were just kind of an up and down team. They are a team that has lost their starting quarterback in Chase Garbers. I believe he went to the draft. I don't know if he got picked up really by anybody. They lost Cameron Good and Elijah Hicks on the defensive side. They were definitely one of the better defensive teams last year because Justin Wilcox is a big defensive guy, a former defensive coordinator. They went ahead and picked up Jake Plummer, I believe, not to be confused with Will Plummer, who was a terrible quarterback for the Arizona Wildcats last year, but he transfers over from Purdue University. He's going to be heading up the Golden Bears. This is a team that, like I said, was so up and down, and you could really tell just by their rankings, right? Offensively, scoring-wise, they were 96th national, so not great. 8th in the Pac-12. Defensively, though, they were 32nd in the country and second in the Pac-12. So like I said, definitely a defensive-minded program. Didn't have a great recruiting class, a lot of 3-stars. So this is definitely a team that, a typical Cal Bears team, very focused on athletics, focused on development. They're not going to shock and awe anybody, but it's definitely a team that, can go in any given week and give really any team in the PAC some trouble. John, do you have any thoughts on Cal?
Yeah, you like the last thing you said is exactly. This is going to be everything you've expected from Cal football your entire life. It's going to be boring. Yep. It's like there's no. I mean, Cal hasn't been to a Rose Bowl in over 50 years. Cal's never really I mean, they've had a couple runs right in our lifetime where, all right, like, okay, Cal, like you got to pay attention to them. They had some talent in the backfield at times. They've had some dudes, but honestly, yeah, it's a good defensive squad. They're going to sneak up and beat a couple teams. You just really hope it's not you, if like whoever you are out there, because like at some point Cal does get somebody, because they are always like they're not bowl eligible, but they're just like perfectly mediocre where they're going to still win 2 or 3 conference games, and then you just really hope you don't get snake bitten by Cal. But they're going to be tough defensively. They've been that since Wilcox took over, and so they're going to be good defensively. But other than that, there's no reason to be excited. Like Cal fans aren't excited about Cal, so there's no reason for you as an outsider really to be excited about Cal.
Yeah, completely agree. Obviously, the days of the Marshawn Lynch's, the Aaron Rodgers, those days are kind of over, right? Like they haven't really put out top tier NFL talent in quite a while. A very, very vanilla offense team. If they're going to beat you, they're going to beat you on the defensive end. So like you said, man, like, you just hope it's not you. You hope that your coach has a good game plan offensively, that he can, break that defense and then just score enough points to overcome a really, mediocre offense. But I don't see them finishing, they finished 5-7 last year. I don't see them finishing much greater than that, maybe like 6-6. But, kind of a middling team. Like you said, man, they haven't been relevant in a long, long time. So,
yeah. High side Cal, 7 wins. Low side Cal, 5. Like they always fall in the exact same. They're the same every year. Like you could literally just generate all NCAA players. It doesn't matter. They're the same team every year. Cal's so Cal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, moving on, we're going to go up north a little bit. We are going to go to Eugene, Oregon, the Oregon Ducks. Mario Cristobal is now gone. He's coaching the Miami Hurricanes. Chip Kelly is down in Westwood. So Dan Lanning, come on up to the podium. You just won yourself a championship at the University of Georgia, being the defensive coordinator there. Now you're running the ship at the University of Oregon, Nike University. Obviously, this is a team that's had a lot of success in the Pac-12 for like 10, 15 years. They're always going to recruit well because they have damn near a different jersey every single game. And, kids love that. They have a lot of allure with their program because of the success from the Chip Kelly era. And Dan Lanning, I don't think he's a bad hire at all. Obviously, his defenses were monstrous during the time he was at Georgia. And he's inheriting a roster that already has some really good defensive guys on it, whether you're talking about Noah Sewell at linebacker, Justin Flo at linebacker, or they have Brandon Dorless at defensive end. And then they're bringing back a guy like Alex Forsyth on the offensive line. They did lose a handful of guys, though. Losing Travis Dye at the running back spot to USC is kind of a backbreaker. He was kind of the engine of that offense last year. Losing Kayvon Thibodeau to the draft, obviously he never lived up to quite the hype that they thought he was going to have, but he was a monster as it was. Verone McKinley was kind of the quarterback of that defense at the safety position. He is now gone. He went to the draft as well. But this is still a really, really strong team. Obviously, they should contend for the Pac-12 title. Last year, they finished 10-4 with objectively a pretty poor roster. Anthony Brown was running the show last year from the quarterback spot. He had a very poor year. And now they bring in our good friend from Auburn, Bo Nix. That'll be an interesting scenario that will play out. Bo just seemingly never could get it going at Auburn, suffered with a lot of injuries, could never play on the road, struggled in big games. Now he comes over to Oregon, where he's never going to play quite the defensive talent that he did in the SEC. Oregon did have a pretty good recruiting class, a 5-star guy, a bunch of 4-stars and a handful of 3-stars. So they could still be very, very dangerous. It's a team that last year finished 42nd in the nation on offense, again, with a bad quarterback, right? Now, they did lose Travis Dye, so that's going to hurt them quite a bit. Defensively, they did struggle last year. They were 75th in the nation, but bringing on Dan Lanning should help remedy that quite a bit. And like I said, they still have some dogs on the defensive side. This is a team that's really vying, kind of auditioning for a Big Ten spot. Them in Washington, that's kind of what they're looking at. So, John, what do you think? Do you think Oregon could make some noise this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's a conference that's winnable if you have talent, and I think they're still going to have talent. 14 stars returning. Bo Nix, though, even though, which I would just say, like, Bo Nix is just a good watch. Like, even if, to me, I'm glad he's coming over because, like, I actually enjoyed watching him play for whatever he was. He seems to be one of those guys who sort of is like a chaos agent, and I always like having that in a conference that I'm going to spend time watching. So. Definitely excited to have him in conference and to join Oregon. They're bringing over a guy with defensive prowess, as you mentioned. And, it seems like they're always loaded at secondary. It seems like they've always had DBs there at Oregon. So I think they're definitely going to be in the mix. There's no reason to believe that they're not. The one thing I guess you would just argue against it is that, I don't know. I do think Oregon has been, as you mentioned, like kind of feasting off the Chip Kelly years for quite some time. They really haven't ever really regained that and hasn't been as good as what we think of, right? Like, I'm sure every Oregon fan is still living in those glory years. And the reality is those national championship appearances or college playoff appearances, those are getting a little further and further in the rearview mirror. And those Nike uniforms just aren't looking quite as shiny as they used to. So, they're going to have a squad, though, like you mentioned. They do have talent, so they're going to be in every game. I mean, they went and won at Ohio State last year. I mean, so there's talent on that roster. And they look good in that game. I mean, like, that was a really impressive performance, like, from start to finish. For 4 quarters, they absolutely handled Ohio State at the shoe. So, I mean, like, they can obviously do it. So I think a lot of it's just going to be, like, whether they buy into what Lanning's bringing to the table and they all get on board and get behind that, because it kind of like we talked about USC, and I know we're going to get to them, like, we talked about them last week, is just like it's one of those programs where you feel like it's always going to be close and the talent's always kind of like right there bubbling. So if they get the right coach and they actually get that right, you always have to believe that they have a chance to make a run at the playoffs and at least at minimum, just make a run at the Pac-12 division or conference, I should say.
Yeah, totally. And they do open up the season with Georgia. So Dan Lanning will be going back home to face his old team. And then they have a couple tough games with like BYU. They should be decent again this year. They play a revamped Washington team. They play Utah at the end of the season. But most of their other games are kind of cupcake games, playing the Stanfords, the Colorados, the Arizonas of the world. So it's going to be interesting to see really what goes on with that team. I could definitely see them going probably – either the same record as last year or maybe a slight regression of like a win or two. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean they're gonna hang around, man, and it's all about it's still once you get into conference, we'll see, because like those, I mean, as much as that, like, good luck playing Georgia, by the way, week 1.
Oof,
But they did
tough
it.
game.
They did it. I mean, I guess good to have them then, and it certainly doesn't factor in the conference. And it's a down conference, so there's no reason to think Oregon shouldn't be able to cruise and be in it at the end. Like the whole conference isn't great. We're going to go through a lot of teams that we're going to simply be like, underwhelming. Like, yeah, maybe there's some hope for the future, but like, are you really afraid of them week in and week out? And Oregon shouldn't have a lot of teams on their schedule that they're really afraid to play.
Right. Totally agree, man. So let's stay in the state of Oregon. We're going to go to Corvallis, go over to Oregon State, a team led by Jonathan Smith at head coach. They finished last year at 7-6. They did qualify for a bowl game against Utah State, which they ended up losing. They return, by and large, a lot of the same team. They have Chance Nolan at quarterback, fifth-year junior Luke Musgrave at tight end, Omar Spates at inside linebacker. But they did lose a few guys, Avery Roberts at inside linebacker, BJ Baylor at running back, and then our old pal from the Wildcats, Nathan Eldridge. He is now gone. One of the guys we do want to highlight, though, is obviously Damian Martinez, a running back from the state of Texas that they brought in this year. He came into spring practices, and I guess he really blew it up. So watch out for him this year. He could be a real workhorse in his first year in the PAC. And then this is a team that, finished with a winning record last year. And, as much as you want to think Oregon State is a boring team, because when I think of Oregon State, I don't think of fireworks, right? But they're a very consistent team. They had wins last year against SC, against Washington, against Stanford. So it's not a team that's just going to lay down and give you an easy game. This is definitely a team that has some guys on their roster that could be potentially next level guys. Last year, they finished 44th in the nation in scoring and 60th on defense. So I think by and large, they could still be a very dangerous team for any Pac-12 opponent. And they should definitely be respected, but they're kind of in the Cal mold, definitely better than Cal, but probably not anybody that you're going to be super, super fearful of. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think like they probably earned a little bit more respect last year. It felt like a stronger, like they feel stronger than Cal. They feel a little bit more dangerous than Cal, I would say. So I'm pulling for you, Beefs. Like I root for them in that Oregon game. Like no doubt about it in my mind. Like I'm rooting for the Beavs 9 times out of 10 in that game. Maybe like with the outside opportunity of like if Oregon really has a chance to play off and that's like the one Pac-12 representative, like do I do a little bit of that conference stuff? Like, okay, maybe. But like when the Beavs are good, it's normally because they have a good running back. Like historically, when they have been good, it's because they've had that dude in the backfield that they can just give the rock to and go. And so if this kid is legit, their offense showed some promise last year, and maybe it's a year where they actually get some run. And Oregon State might be fighting for their lives to get into any conference, frankly, because they seem to be the ones on the outside looking in because they don't have a lot of pull. But so this could be a big year for them. So I'm kind of hoping for their sake that they do have a nice run in them in the North. And there's plenty of teams that are down. So if it's Oregon and Oregon State battling for it, and that Civil War at the end of the year means something, then that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally, man. I completely agree. Watch out for the Beavs for sure. We're going to make our way back down to the Bay Area. We are going to go down to Stanford, right? The old war horse led by David Shaw. Definitely a team that I feel kind of like they're living on the reputation that Andrew Luck built. They haven't been really relevant for a number of years. They finished last year at only 3-9, and I don't feel like a whole lot of people have talked about it. They started out the year, getting a couple wins against USC, getting a win against Oregon, and then they had 7 straight losses, right? So this is definitely a team that really living off the reputation of their head coach, living off the reputation of, one of the best quarterbacks to ever come through college football. And they haven't done a whole lot to like really change that, right? They still have a few guys, Tanner McKee is a dark horse Heisman candidate, your prototypical pro-style quarterback. So if he gets hot, they could end up being a better team. They got Michael Wilson at wide receiver. They got Kelly at cornerback. But they did lose a few guys too, right? Like Austin Jones, the running back. He transferred to USC as well. Gabe Reed, their outside linebacker, transferred to Utah. And then Thomas Booker on the defensive line has left the team as well. Last year, they finished with a horrendous scoring mark of 113th in the country and 106th nationally on defense. So definitely a team that really hasn't done anything for a while, right? Definitely not a good team. Everything that people are pointing out about this team is that they're running the same offense that they were, 10 years ago. And they're extremely predictable. They're going to hit you with motion and try to get your, the matchups. And it's pretty easy to game plan for. And this could be a put up or shut up year for David Shaw, who has persisted to stay at Stanford and kind of batted off interest from the NFL. This could be his swan song if he doesn't turn it around. John, what are your thoughts on Stanford?
Well, first of all, put some respect on Davis Mills' name. Okay. It's not just Andrew Luck. Davis Mills is in the building now, Houston Texans quarterback.
That's true.
But no, I think you're right. David Shaw has strung this out forever. He's still, doing media. Like, everybody just swears by this guy, but he won't take graduate transfers to help improve his roster. He has his own system on how he recruits, and say what you want, but and I'm actually just your point about, hey, they run the same thing. Well, that's fine. It didn't matter, right? They used to recruit the 5 best offensive linemen in the country, bring them all in, recruit 10 other tight ends. Their quarterback's a tight end, their tight end's a tight end, the other tight end's a tight end, their wide receiver's a tight end, the fullback's a tight end, and they would just run power right down your throat until you died, until you absolutely caved, and it didn't matter because they recruited so damn well that it didn't matter, and they would just literally man you up. And in a conference that was traditionally a little bit on the lighter side and, valued speed, they would just power through the conference, and that's what made them different, and that's why they won, and that's what made them interesting. But if you don't recruit those offensive linemen, and that's now become a weak point for them, you don't have the tight ends that are all getting drafted in the first round. Your quarterback doesn't look as good because you can't protect him, and everything that you're talking about all starts to turn, and then David Shaw looks like a clown. So it's amazing how quickly it's turned, because David Shaw was literally the best thing going, and now it's kind of hard to understand what they love. And especially when you reflect on it and you're going well, they just ran power. And I loved watching it. It was great watching McCaffrey. I mean, they just lined up freaking 11 dudes on the line. I mean, it's what it felt like. Just everybody's on the line, and they're just hey, it's going power right, or we're going to run, little iso, whatever. They were just power football right down your throat, and it was fun to watch, and it ain't fun anymore. And 3-9 ain't it. And it looks like it's going to be another one of those years, unless that offensive line play gets way better and they can return to that power run game that we're used to seeing.
Yep, totally. And I think something that we need to discuss too is just the simple fact that a lot of teams in the Pac-12 specifically, right, have really utilized the NIL to their advantage, right? USC has dominated the NIL. Arizona's done a great job with the NIL. A number of teams have really attacked that. And Stanford is one of those teams that they just simply will never be a big-time player in the NIL due to them having the restrictions that they do academically, right? They have that. They have, obviously, I don't think the budget is necessary there to be big-time players for a university like Stanford. So they really, really have to rely on recruiting. And even then, they're hamstrung on the recruiting, again, because of the academic restrictions. Now, they had a pretty decent recruiting class last year, had a handful of 4-star recruits, as they normally do. But again, you're dealing with an antiquated offense that is very easily predictable. So I guess it doesn't matter what kind of recruits come in there if your offense is stagnant and stale.
It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I mean, we've seen it work. So it's I know it can be done, but I think they're really dependent on talent and developing that talent. And because he's so look, the guy's just stubborn in his ways. So he's either going to die doing exactly what he's been doing, or he's going to win doing exactly what he's been doing. That much we know.
Yep, I totally agree with you, man. All right, we're going to make our way up to the state of Washington. First stop is in Seattle. We're taking a look at the Washington Huskies. Definitely had a down year last year after being preseason number 20. Jimmy Lake is gone after getting into a couple fights on the sidelines with his own players. Their offense was terrible. They had so much talent on the defensive side of the ball. And, there they did finish 36th in the nation, which is okay. But when you look at exactly how much talent they had on that side, they literally had two all Pac-12 first team selections at corner. One guy, Trent McDuffie, went in the first round. Kyler Gordon went very early in the second round. They had a guy in Cade Otton that will be catching passes from Tom Brady this year. So a lot of talent on that team. They just didn't really pull it all together. Now, chances are Jimmy Lake probably played a huge part of that. Anytime you have a head coach that's just not pulling his weight and might be a locker room cancer, that can definitely derail a program. But this is a team that, prides itself on being a Pac-12 power that can line up and play the Big Ten teams of the world, the SEC teams of the world, even though they haven't had a real history of national success, right? They do have a few guys coming back this year. They have Zion Tupa-Ola Fatui, who a lot of people thought was going to go in the draft last year. He's a very, very good outside linebacker. They have Rome Odunze at wide receiver and Jalen McMillan at wide receiver. So they do have a couple good wide receivers coming in. They have Michael Penix Jr. coming in from Indiana, and they are now obviously headed by Kalen DeBoer, the former head coach of Fresno State, who had an electric offense last year. I know you and I enjoyed watching a USC Fresno State game when we were in Vegas last year. He has an incredible offensive mind. So you're looking at a team last year that finished 107th in the nation in scoring. That is probably going to be a very, very big focus this year. They have the guys to do it. We'll see if Michael Penix Jr. can turn it around. I know he had a tough year at Indiana last year, but DeBoer was his offensive coordinator a few years back at Indiana as well, where he had a lot of success. So chances are the Huskies can turn around. Similar to Oregon, this is kind of like their Big Ten audition tape. Let's see if they can come through and actually, put on the showing that we thought they would give us last year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like the hire, right? I like Fresno State. Seems like they always kind of sneaky have a little something there. So they seem to make good hires. So if you're getting a Fresno State guy, I just kind of tend to lean into it's probably a good hire for Washington. And I know you kind of poo-pooed like Washington, being a national player. Like they did win a national championship. Like in 1991. I mean, it was 1991. It was a long time ago, grant you. But like, I get why they think, right? The same way Nebraska rolls in with their bus with all their national titles on it. Like that Nebraska's a long, long ways away. But if you're a Washington fan and you're an alumni that's been around for a while and like your heart of hearts, you still somehow believe, hey, that is like the tailgating scene that I'm like mad that I have yet to get to. Tailgating on a boat, that's like some next level stuff.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'll just say that like I hope Washington just returns to some prominence so that I can just go and kind of see Washington with like a little bit of juice, with a little bit of like, because I don't want to go on like a sad boat. Like I don't want to show up and like as an Arizona fan and have them thinking they're going to lose before, like that's a sad, like I want them to be ramped up, revved up, ready to go. And then like, I want to go have a good time on a boat because that's just a freaking cool scene. So I kind of hope Washington just gets back to at least respectable, good football. I don't need them to win national championships. I'm not rooting for them on that level, but I want it to be good enough so where it's worth it for me to take a trip and go tailgating on a boat. So for those reasons, I'm in on Washington trying to turn it around. And traditionally, like we mentioned with they've always had like a great secondary. You mentioned the guys that they lost, but they seem to put guys on the defensive side of the ball pretty consistently. And then for them, it's just always been about like finding that quarterback or finding something that makes them go on offense, because it seems like it's been years and years since the Hewards or anybody I can think of that's moved the ball on offense for Washington.
Totally, man. And, the PAC is always more fun when Washington is good. Seattle is a great market. They really need to make sure that they, really plug into the state and really recruit it at a high level, because there's always a bunch of talent that comes out of there. Really high level athletes. Like you just said, a bunch of guys in the secondary. Marcus Peters comes to mind. He's not from Washington, he's from the Bay Area, but still, they always have these guys that just ball out in the secondary for Washington. And they always have a handful of guys, on the defensive line that are pretty good. So hopefully they can turn it around. I like when Washington is good. They're always a fun watch. They were one of my worst bets last year, though. I will say I took the money line against Michigan and they got rolled. So hopefully betting on Washington this year is a little bit easier on my soul. So I'm pulling for Washington for sure. They're in the Pac-12 North, so it doesn't really, matter to my team anyway. So
that whole athletic department is on watch. They used to be a good basketball program too, and they're just taking it in the shorts everywhere. That is like a good university that has had a pretty good athletic tradition, over the years. But as of late, it is just like an ouch in every major sport.
Yeah, totally weird, right? Because even the guy they brought in to coach the basketball team was supposed to be the next big thing at Syracuse, and he's done absolutely nothing for that basketball program. So definitely weird, man. But moving on to the other part of the state, going to Eastern Washington and Pullman. Yes, great Pullman, Washington. Everybody loves Pullman. We're going to take a look at the Washington State Cougars, a team that was mired in controversy last year with their head coach, Nick Rolovic, refusing to take the COVID vaccine. He got canned due to inability to be available because of a state mandate. They replaced him with Jake Dickert, who did help turn around the program in the second half of the year. But this is a team, right? They did lose their freshman, I think he was player of the year, right? Freshman player of the year, Jaden DeLora. He's now suiting up for the Wildcats. They lost right tackle Abraham Lucas to the draft, and Jalen Watson, cornerback as well. And then they do still have some guys. They have Dejon Stribling at wide receiver. He's a beast. Ron Stone Jr., defensive end, another beast, had 11.5 tackles for loss last year. And Armani Marsh as well in the defense. And then the big story coming out of Pullman is that they were able to bring in Cameron Ward out of Incarnate Word. Now, let me ask you, John, have you ever heard of Cameron Ward?
Well, I just know the connection with the coach. So that story made it to my world, but I'd be lying if I said I knew much about either the OC or Cameron Ward. I just know that they're a package deal.
Well, let me tell you, you're completely right. He followed his head coach, who is now the offensive coordinator at Washington State. This is a guy that threw for 4,648 yards, 47 touchdowns, and only 14 interceptions at the FCS level. Definitely a guy that is going to be playing in the same offense with better receivers. This guy could be a very dark horse for Heisman watch, right? If our better people are out there, the guys that are placing futures bets. I know, John, you're not a futures guy, but if you're placing bets on Heisman and you want to make your money, Cam Ward might be it. He's plus 5,000 for the Heisman, coming into the same offense that he was playing at the FCS level. He could definitely turn the Pac-12 upside down. Now, granted, losing Jaden DeLora does suck for that team because he was kind of the heart and soul of that offense. But this is a guy that you should definitely, if you're watching Pac-12 after dark, especially you guys on the East Coast, I definitely have some eyes glued to the TV when Cam Ward is throwing the ball. This is a team that ranks 71st nationally offensively. Not the greatest of numbers, but you have to wonder how much the turmoil at the beginning of the season played into that. And then defensively, they were 47th. So not too shabby at all on the defensive side of the ball. Didn't lose a lot of guys either. Had a pretty mediocre recruiting class, as Washington State tends to do. Brought in a whole bunch of 3-star recruits, but definitely could be a team going forward that could be very, very nice. I know Jake Dickert really does have the locker room on lock. All those guys really, really wanted him to replace Rolovic when he left. So I would be looking out for Washington State for sure. I think the Apple Cup could be very interesting this year.
So I got to say, you can do whatever you want with your hard-earned money and when gambling responsibly. But I would tell you that would be sacrilege to burn money on Cameron Ward for the Heisman Trophy. Now, what you should do is you should spend some of your time late night watching Cameron Ward slinging it in Palouse, because I'm sure they'll be in some shootouts. That's very Coug-esque. Coug's going to Coug. But that's exactly why you do not put money on a Heisman Trophy. Like, one, they're not giving a Heisman Trophy to Washington State. Like, where in your heart of hearts do you really believe that? You don't. And then two, as you know, and if you follow along with Pac-12 football, like, Coug's going to Coug. And when they Coug it up, that just means that they're going to choke. So, like, Cameron Ward might throw for 7 touchdowns, but that doesn't mean that they don't lose 56-49 back-to-back weeks. So, the Cougs are going to Coug, and we love them, and, God bless them in Palouse, but please don't, bet responsibly.
Listen, John, all I'm saying is you got a guy that has been playing in the same offense for years, in an air raid, mind you, so he's going to get just mad passing yards, touchdowns. And if he's able to even remotely turn around that team and make them at all relevant, if you're able to put down a $10 bet and not buy Starbucks for a week, and it could turn into a $500. Yeah, you get a $500.
It's a value play. I got you.
You get a $500 return on investment.
It's a value play. I would say if you could get like Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year or something like that, like, then I feel really good about it. You're probably going to lose some of your, you're not going to get the same odds, but I just think it's more Bijan Robinson if you want your Heisman.
Listen,
but
I'm strictly speaking to the sharks out there that will bet any little bet just for ROI purposes only. All right. $10 ain't nothing to some of these guys out there. This might be the move, at least a somewhat reasonable futures pick at plus 5,000 odds. So I'm just saying, I agree with you. Bet responsibly, as always. And if you have a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or whatever the hotline is.
Yeah, I was I don't know. Do we have to even do that? Is that like, I feel like I hear that on everything else. I'm like, are we supposed to say? I think it's fine. We're not like really promoting gambling. We're just saying if you gamble.
It is fun, though. I will say that. I didn't, don't take that out of context. But might be a fun play for sure. At the end of the day, you're looking at a team that finished, where did they finish? 6-6 in the Pac-12 with locker room turmoil and a coaching change.
The entire North is 6-6.
Yes,
the entire North.
Pretty
much.
They're
all 6-6. Yeah.
But you're looking at a team that has some level of consistency, bringing in a potential star quarterback. I'm just saying, I think, the Cougs are going to Coug. I agree. But if they finish with 7 or 8 wins, I would not be surprised.
I do like throw-heavy Cougars, though. Like, Mike Leach Cougars was the best Cougars. So
Mike Leach anything is the best.
It is. And, like, we should just do a whole thing we could do a whole episode on Mike Leach. And we probably should someday. Maybe that's what we do next summer. We just talk about Mike Leach for, like, 3 months. And just whatever, Pirate Theory, his favorite shows to watch, whatever. Guy's the best.
We'll definitely take a deep dive into some of these head coaches that we either love or loathe. Mike Leach will be top of my list of episodes where we talk about guys that are just absolutely great for the sport, great for the world, national treasures. Mike Leach, stay golden, please, for the love of God. Coach as long as you possibly can, strictly just for the press conferences.
And he's in Stark Vegas. You got to be kidding me. We're jumping ahead to the SEC stuff, but, dude, you got to be kidding me that they have this gem.
Yeah.
And then the rivalry game is him and Kiffin. Like, are you kidding me? Spoiled.
Yeah. Stay tuned, guys.
They don't even have education. I mean, not Arizona. We shouldn't be saying anything. We shouldn't glass house. But like in Mississippi, to have these two guys like in the state of Mississippi, I have no idea how they pulled this off.
Somebody's definitely doing some voodoo down there and just really turning luck over.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Talk about press conference gold. That's what that's called. So
Mississippi River feeds us all.
Abso-freaking-lutely, dude. Awesome. So now we're moving down to the Pac-12 South, right? Where the real action is, if we're going to keep it honest, all right? Because there's no bias when I say this. Pac-12 South is where all the drama's at. We're going to start out with our alma mater, the team that we love and hate. We're going to start with the Arizona Wildcats, right? Headed by the lovely Jed Fish. They were on a real streak last year, not in a good way. This is a team that their only win of the season last year came in a COVID Cup against the Cal Golden Bears.
Thanks, Cal.
They had been losing 20-plus games before that. They were 1-23, dating back to 2019 because of the great head coach hire that they made. I don't even want to say his name because he doesn't deserve it. He's a real gem. Anyway, the Bars of Tucson are better off without him.
I'll say this. I saw a license plate the other day that said Smilin', and it was a nice car, and I almost thought I saw a ghost and was like, I was mad at the car until I realized what I was reading.
Yeah, you probably got a little bit of PTSD for sure off that one.
It looks awfully like something else, but thank God it's just Smilin'.
Yeah. God, if there would have been a U in that damn license plate.
I'm telling you, I started to small palpitations for sure.
Yeah, dude, you might want to get checked. Anyway, we're looking at a team, right, that although they've been absolute dookie water for years, since Rich Rod left because of allegations of sexual assault that ended up being false. Rich Rod, we still love you. At least I do. We're looking at a team that's returning Jalen Harris, who could be a dark horse for, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year if he brings all the tools together. They made a coaching change at defensive coordinator, bringing in Johnny Nansen from UCLA. That defense could get a little bit better this year for sure, since they're not going to be blitzing every single play, even though we love you, Dr. Blitz, and we hope you do great at UMass. They do have Christian Roland Wallace, one of the better corners in the Pac-12. And they have your boy at left tackle, Jordan Morgan, a local legend here in Tucson. I'm sure you can speak on him a little bit. And then they bring in Jaden Delora, who we mentioned earlier. That should definitely help a team that could not figure out the quarterback position to save their life last year. And then they bring in a phenomenal recruiting class for Arizona, bring in Tetaiora, I can't ever say his name, McMillan, T-Mac, at the wide receiver position, and then a handful of other 4-star prospects and a bunch of 3-stars. This is a team that rivals listed as their number one recruiting class in the Pac-12. Yes, John, number one recruiting class. Tell me the last time you ever heard that. You won't, because it's never happened. And I think they were either 21st, 22nd, or maybe even top 20 nationally, according to 247, recruiting wise. So definitely a team on the uptick, probably a couple years away, for sure. This is a team that finished 124th nationally offensively. Not surprising when you're rotating 4 different quarterbacks and they all suck. And a team that finished 101st defensively, which was actually an improvement, right? Had more sacks under Don Brown. Makes sense when you're blitzing every other play. A team that improved statistically on takeaways, but still, if we're going to keep it completely honest, a terrible, terrible team last year. But what's your outlook for this Arizona team, John? Do you see them improving?
So one, T-Mac's name's hard to say, and I just want to commend you on getting through Dickert and Penix flawlessly. So whatever you did on T-Mac is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
This child's play.
The jokes write themselves.
After dancing through those, child's play. Big man, light on his feet. But I'm excited, man. I mean, there's a lot of juice in Arizona right now. Right? Like the vibes are good. Like everybody's excited about the head coach. Everybody's excited about every other coach on the squad. The vibes are good. And the social media is better than it's been. Like, everything is better. You mentioned the recruiting class. Everything looks good, but they're also up against all the other things you mentioned. The terrible losing streak, all the bad vibes from the last coach, the worst, a terrible defense, a terrible offense. I know we're watching games last year where we finally get to our best. The guy's throwing 3 interceptions, and we're like, dude, this guy is legit. Like, we've got ourselves a quarterback now, and like, just because he was competitive. So, but I'm excited, man. And like, that's what you want in college football. Like, the momentum, the vibes, like, all of those things, like, actually can translate. And so, unfortunately, they've have this really rough out of conference schedule to start. And so that's going to make it really hard to get the good vibes rolling in terms of getting some wins. But you're right, man. I'm excited about the recruits. I'm excited about, Jordan Morgan having a chance to shine, a guy that I got to, get to know as a kid. He was a kid playing, I was coaching JV football in Marana and getting to know him. And we kind of joked about it on Twitter, but, I was trying to play him at quarterback. We're mixing him in. Maybe we just let this kid, because the kid's a really good athlete. And honestly, he can throw the ball. He can catch. He can do all those things. And that's what you expect of these freaks that end up being these stud kids. So I'm really hoping he has a big year. He hasn't really, to be fair, he hasn't been incredible this whole time, but he has a chance to really step up and make a difference in this program now that it's kind of headed in the right direction. And maybe it had nothing to do with him. And the same could be said about a lot of these kids, that maybe they just needed the right direction, the right guidance. And so hopefully this ship is going in the right direction. And I'm just trying not to get my hopes up. I am really excited. I'm sure you are, and I'm sure everybody is. But then I just am taking the cautiously super pessimistic approach of, this team still isn't going to win any freaking games. There's no reason to believe that they're going to be any good yet. But I'm glad that the direction of the program is headed is a good one and a positive one. Yeah,
man. You mentioned it earlier that their out of conference schedule is nightmarish, right? You start the season out at San Diego State, who won 12 games last year. Then you go to, they come to us, but Stark Vegas. And
Mike Leach, our boy.
Yeah. Leach is coming to Tucson. So I will be at that game, and I'm sure you will too. We will tailgate the shit out of that game. And we may or may not have some rooting skin in the game for Mississippi State. But then the week after that, you bring in North Dakota State, who is a absolute powerhouse in FCS. So whoever put this schedule together should, if they're not already fired, might need to have a review of their position. But then, you do have some winnable games. You're playing Cal this year, Colorado, a Washington team that, again, was pretty terrible last year. They could be decent this year. And then Washington State and Arizona State. So I don't think 4 or 5 wins is out of the question. Now, granted, this could definitely be the Arizona Wildcat and me just being very, very optimistic. But for a team that had the recruiting class that they did, they brought in a winner at quarterback in Jaden DeLaura. They brought over Hunter Echols from USC. Keon Bars had 5 sacks last year. He's only going to get better. They brought in some really good transfers as well using the NIL money. This is a team that should be significantly better. It's just, hey, can Jed Fish only recruit or can he coach too? Which, for a guy that has literally been a coach in some capacity for what it seems like 70 billion teams in the NFL and college combined, chances are the guy probably can coach a little bit. So let's hope that they put the pieces together this year and they at least end up better than their neighbors to the north.
Yeah, that's right. That's really just start by being better than those guys, and then let's continue to put this thing together. But I'm just excited to be that we can watch what I believe will be at least competitive football and not sad football. I was here for Makovic. That was like my first introduction to Arizona football. I watched kids quit on the team. I've been in empty stadiums at Arizona. Like, that is not fun. Like, there is nothing wrong with 7-5 Rich Rod teams. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm realistic about what Arizona is. Like, 10-win seasons aren't going to be an every year thing. That is fine. I just want that, but I also would go and, like, we upset top 10 UCLA. We can give USC a game. We give Oregon a run for their money when they're at their best, right? Like, you just want to be competitive in those games and have that feeling that you get in a college stadium that is unlike anything else. That chance to rush the field, like, I just want those moments back instead of just years and years of sadness.
Yeah, dude. And they were competitive at points last year, right? Like the BYU game was very, very close last year. The Oregon game where we literally had a guy throw 3 interceptions and we were still somewhat in it up until the fourth quarter. And then the USC and the Utah games, they were fighting hard. So it is a team that Jed Fish does seemingly have his guys fighting for. So, I mean, that's all you can ask for, right? When you have a talent devoid team because of he who shall not be named didn't recruit at all. At least now you've got some guys in the stable that seemingly have a good amount of talent. Now let's just see if Jed Fish can actually coach, like I said, right? And speaking of our neighbors to the north, we will take an hour and a half drive up to Tempe. Herm Edwards is driving a truck that is seemingly going to go over an IUD at any point now. This is probably the biggest shit show in college football. They fired what seems like every assistant, but didn't cut the head off the snake. And now they are going into the season with a team that lost a lot of talent through the transfer wire, understandably so, could not recruit due to the oncoming sanctions. They did bring on Emory Jones from Florida, but to be fair, he was pretty awful at Florida. There's a reason why Florida went 4-8. And then they lost a few guys, right? Like Jaden Daniels, who was one of the only real reasons that they won some games last year, even though he was not good, but his mobility kept him in games. Rashad White's in the NFL now. DJ Davidson is gone, but they still have a few guys too, right? Like Merlin Robertson is one of the best Sam linebackers in the country. Ladarius Henderson at tackle, Kyle Sowell at middle linebacker. They got a few guys. They got a transfer from Miami on the defensive line that should help them. But this is not the homer in me for the Arizona Wildcats. This is a team that I could very well see just getting absolutely, shit pumped every game of the year. It's a team that nationally finished at 67th in the country on offense, 22nd on defense. So they were very strong defensively, but lost a lot of guys on that side of the football. And they're a team that does play Oklahoma State in the beginning of the season, has games against Utah, USC, UCLA, Oregon State, which we mentioned earlier, Washington State that we mentioned earlier. This is a team that I definitely do not have high aspirations for. John, I know you have plenty of thoughts about the Sun Devils. Give them to me.
Yeah, Herm Edwards, we are who we thought you were. It just took a while, right? So, like, I remember when they hired Herm Edwards, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. There's no way this is going to work. And, we had to eat some crow for a little bit. They had a couple nice years. Well, it turns out they were doing all kinds of weird stuff. And look, Arizona State had this coming in such the worst way. For them to, they're jumping down Arizona fans' throats on this and that over a basketball program that just shines too bright, frankly, just shines too bright. And, sure enough, they got their comeuppance and they got their problems and they got their sanctions coming. And, like, this is what you get to run in your mouth. So, honestly, I don't have much to say about this program, like, other than I just don't like it very much. And what I am sad about, though, and this, like, I truly am, I wish nothing but for the best for this kid. But Trent Bourget, who was a quarterback at Marana High School when I was there, is just like the best kid. And of course, they brought in these crappy transfers instead of just letting this kid play, who's been there and, like, earned his time. And granted, like, I don't know, maybe these other kids are more talented in terms of, like, what they do athletically or whatever. But I was really hoping, and I'm still hoping that Trent maybe gets a chance to shine because, frankly, like, yes, maybe he doesn't have the biggest arm in the world or what have you, but he's one of the sharpest best leaders I've ever been around. And I was really hoping he was going to get a chance just because it was going so bad. And not that I want him to like captain a sinking ship by any means, because that might be what this is. But I was hoping he was just going to get a chance to get some run. But other than that, man, like that's what I'm rooting for that. And then otherwise, I don't like these guys. So I hope it's as bad as you say it is. I hope it's as bad as every article's written is. If they don't ever win a game again, that's fine. If I'd love to go to a better conference, leave them behind, and stick them in the Mountain West, and they can toil in hell forever. I have nothing good to say about Arizona State, and not one of their fans has ever been nice to me ever in the history of time. So it comes with a lot of history.
Yep, the sleeping giant stays sleeping for sure. Definitely a team that I think every program in the nation, at least within, the actual team admin, is wondering how the hell this team is even being able to put a team out there, because Ray Anderson and Herm Edwards have absolutely botched every part of this disaster. And the fact that Herm Edwards is still standing at the top of this program is a disgrace. I will say that. And just, man, what a poor look for the conference. This is a team that for some reason thinks that they'll get a Big Ten invitation. I think they should definitely be waiting in the mail for their Mountain West invitation, like you referenced. This is a disaster waiting to happen. And kind of another team too that had what they thought was some gas on the basketball side of things. It ended up being a shit show there too. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, this is the athletic department that actually believed in Larry Scott. That's all you need to know. These guys actually thought, no, wait till you see what Larry Scott's got coming. Well, guess what Larry Scott had coming? He dismantled the Pac-12 and the whole thing's ruined, and they haven't been making money and taking less money on every contract for years and years and years. And ASU was full on board to just eat that lie. So, oh God, good riddance.
I agree, brother. I agree. Awesome. So let's move up to the other Four Corners team. We're going to move on up to Boulder, Colorado, a team led by Carl Dorrell. The Colorado Buffaloes, they finished last year at 4-8, not a good team. They lost a bunch of guys to the transfer wire, including Jerry Rice's son to USC. They lost Jarek Broussard to Michigan State, Christian Gonzalez to Oregon. They lost Nate Landman at inside linebacker. They do bring back a few guys like Brady Russell at tight end, Jalen Sammy at defensive tackle, and Guy Thomas at defensive end. But this is definitely probably one of the least talented teams in the Pac-12. They had a very large recruiting class, but a very talent devoid recruiting class, a bunch of 3-star guys. Not very good. I don't see them finishing above 3 wins. Just nothing about this team screams like good at any point, right? Like they couldn't keep any of their star guys, didn't bring anybody that's a difference maker. I think Colorado is going to have a very, very tough year. They finished last year at 121st nationally offensively and 73rd defensively. Not good at all. John, what are your thoughts on the Buffaloes?
They still have – this is like a school that – I mean, when they joined the Pac-12, this is, again, kind of like Washington. This was a school that had, national championship, national power at one point, right? When they were in the – I guess maybe it was the Big 12 at the time, right? When they were going up against Nebraska and that game mattered, and they had Slash, Cordell Stewart, Rashawn Salam.
Yep.
This was a school that was really good. So when they joined the Pac-12, it's oh, maybe they'll figure this out. My memories of them are just watching Kadeem Carey run up and down the field all over these guys, to a laughable point. And they've really never gotten this thing going. I just want to say something positive about Colorado, though. When they run that Buffalo out, as stupid as that is, it's awesome. So, I mean, props to Buffalo for having the gumption, the insanity to have 6 college students that I don't even know if they're insured, just running with the wild buffalo. to start a game.
real ass
So
Buffalo.
yeah, like a real Buffalo. So like that's awesome. And so for that, I'm thankful that they've been in our conference. But otherwise, I mean, I don't really know. We shouldn't spend too much time on this. It's not going to be a good team probably again. And like you mentioned, they lost a lot of guys and they brought in a bunch of kids, and they'll probably be worse, right?
Yeah, it's definitely looking that way. I don't think they're going to make really any noise at all. Probably be the worst Pac-12 team between them or like Stanford. I don't see a bright outlook for them in the least. So, like you said, let's not spend too much time on them. Their futures don't hold a whole lot of great things. So, we'll move on. We'll go to LA, right? The two LA teams. We'll start out at Westwood. UCLA, Chip Kelly's own Bruins. They return a team that had some real difference makers on the offensive side. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, definitely one of the most talented quarterbacks in the Pac-12, if not nationally. He returns for his, I believe, last season there in LA. They bring back Zach Charbonnet from former Michigan transfer. He had a huge year last year, had 700-yard games. Stephen Blaylock at safety, but they did lose a handful of pretty good guys too. Greg Dulcich went to NFL. Atito Ogbania left for the NFL. And then Quantrez Knight has also left that defense. Now they bring on a new defensive coordinator in Bill McGovern. This is a team that finished 74th nationally defensively with a bunch of talent. So that was confusing. But they did finish the year 12th in the nation offensively. This is a team that beat LSU last year. Has all the talent in the world, but in typical Chip Kelly fashion, has definitely underperformed. Chip just seemingly cannot grasp the same level of success he had at Oregon. Hasn't really changed his offense up in 15 years. And this is just a team, like I highlighted last episode, that I could definitely see underwhelming, even though they do have a very, very talented roster. I think it just comes down to Chip Kelly not having the offense or the stability in the locker room to get it done. They did finish 8-4 not 8-4. They finished 8-4 last year. I could see them probably finishing probably a little bit below that this year and having Chip Kelly shipped out mid-season. What are your thoughts, John?
Yeah, I know. I think we fired him on the last podcast for sure. Yep. So I don't want to stray too far from that because I still think I kind of stand by that. I mean, the one thing that's interesting with them is that, as you mentioned, they are returning some guys. The Pac-12 is not really great. The South's definitely a little tougher. They do get USC and Utah at home. They do have to play Oregon. So, like, sometimes you can dodge some of those matchups, but they definitely get the one good school in the North that I think we can pretty much say will at least be a legitimate contender. So, like, I could see them winning the same amount of games. Like, the reason I just think is, like, we've been doing this experiment for a long time. And as you mentioned, like, Chip's not really replicating any sort of real success. And then I think ultimately it's kind of like a perception versus reality thing. UCLA always, because of the talent on their roster, and I get why they would feel this way, always expects to be like a 10-win program, and then they just never get there. The reality is they are very rarely that. It's been a long time since they've been that, but they definitely haven't gotten there with Chip, and they certainly haven't been there consistently. So I can just see it being a thing where they go get more money in the Big Ten, and regardless of whether Chip goes 8-4 and 8-4 and 8-4 and 8-4, he might still find himself out of a job just because simply boosters lose patience and want a little bit more and get a little bit greedier. So he might be okay if the schedule lines up and they just kind of beat who they're supposed to and lose to everybody else. But if the reality ends up being that you lose to Utah and USC at home and you lose to Oregon on the road and you still end up losing all the big games, then I could still see him being out of a job because the experiments just run dry.
Yeah, totally. I think that mid-season 3-week span where they go Washington, Utah, and then at Oregon, that could definitely, if they lose all three of those games, which could very well happen, that could be the nail in the coffin for good old Chip Kelly. And then, like you said, having to play USC at the end of the season, that'll probably be not a fun game if you're a Bruins fan, if you ask me. I don't know. I completely agree with you. If it's more of the same and they finish around 8-4, like UCLA boosters have traditionally and historically always demanded high level success since they are in the LA area. They're in the hotbed of the nation for talent. They have unreal boosters that will pony up huge amounts of money to make them a good team, and they just seemingly never get it done. So 8-4 is not going to get it done, right? They're not in Arizona. They're not a Cal. They are not a Washington State. This is UCLA we're talking about, and they view themselves as, a granddaddy of college football for good reason. Like, they've always been very relevant, but 8-4 is not going to get it done. So I could totally see them seeing that as a poor season for sure. Moving across town, we're going to look at USC. Obviously, this is the team from the Pac-12 that the nation is talking about. Bringing in Lincoln Riley from Oklahoma, bringing in Caleb Williams from Oklahoma, bringing in just like so many different transfers. Travis Dye from Oregon, bringing in Mario Williams from Oklahoma. I think they got Jordan Addison from Pitt as well. Like, their receiving core is disgusting. Their offensive. Their offense should be absolutely incredible this year. It is a team that finished 65th in the nation on offense and 103rd nationally on defense. You're looking at a team that brought in Alex Grinch from Oklahoma as defensive coordinator, and he traditionally has had a pretty decent defense. So it's definitely a team that, talent-wise is unreal, as USC typically is. They did lose a couple guys like Drake London and Drake Jackson. Keaton Slovis went to Pitt. But they're just returning an incredibly talented team, brought in a bunch of new guys that are just unreal. Caleb Williams should be for sure in the conversation for the Heisman, especially with that receiving core. So, John, what do you think? Do they finish top of the Pac-12, or are we looking at maybe a year or two away?
They might be a year or two away, but they're going to have a puncher's chance with, look, Lincoln Riley has been basically like guaranteeing that he'll win a Heisman Trophy is what it feels like. And there's, obviously bringing over his quarterback, Caleb Williams, like, he's going to have a chance, and he's presumably going to put up a lot of points. Like, the guy was super dynamic. No reason to believe they're not going to score a lot. And this is what you want. Like, if you're, honestly, when I'm a Pac-12 fan, I want to see good USC teams too, right? Like, I want the best USC team to come to town. Like, I loved, like, and I was an Arizona fan, yes, but like when Reggie Bush and Matt, like when you're playing those teams, like, you want to play those teams. Like, you want to see how you guys stack up, whatever. Like, so it's fine by me, like, I'm excited. Like, yes, of course, like, you want to try to take advantage when they're down or what have you, but I'm glad that they're going to be back and putting up points and, like, at least giving it a run. And I think they're going to do that. And the question is, like, are they better than Utah, or like, are they still going to stumble as they just kind of go through their growing pains? Like, I think those things are still possible, but I think they're definitely going to be competitive, and they're definitely going to be in this thing. And we're going to be talking about them most of the year. So it's I think it's good to have him back. It's as much as it's, I don't root for him per se, but you just want these schools to do well. Like we talked about with Washington, and gosh, if Colorado was worth visiting, I'd like to go, but I don't want to sit with 8 other fans and watch them be sad. Like you want a strong conference, and USC is obviously a big part of that until they're gone. But while we got them, let's enjoy it. Let's get our run at them. I hope that they, win every game except the one against my team. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. So, but yeah, I think they'll be good, man. They're going to score points. We know they're going to score points, and I've never watched a USC team that didn't have a couple wide receivers that scared you to death, and I don't think it's going to be any different in this offense.
Their schedule this year is pretty weak, too. If you look at it, they play Rice and Stanford and Fresno State at the beginning. And then the toughest team that they play the rest of the year is Utah, which will be an absolute lightning show, I think. And then Notre Dame at the end of the year and UCLA right before that. So they could either run the table, maybe lose a couple games, but they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I completely agree with you. Like college football in general is more fun when USC is good. My dad definitely lived in Southern California for a long time, and I know he has a soft spot for USC in his heart. So it'll be fun to have a few shit talking sessions with the old man when it comes to USC Arizona, even though I know Arizona is going to get absolutely annihilated when they play that USC team. So I'm looking forward to that for sure this season.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to plenty of games where USC torches Arizona, but every single time I walk away being like, well, it's cool. I got to see a couple first-round picks at wide receiver. You know what I mean? You always go like away being like, well, that kid was a stud. Like, you know, like watching Reggie Bush torch us was freaking incredible. Like, if you're going to lose, like that's who you want to lose to. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you want to lose to those kinds of guys. So it's like, if that's what it is, then like, so be it. And it's nice when it's just nice when the PAC shines. And so that's one of the schools where it's most likely to happen. And I guess I'm sure we're going to hop into another school who's actually like been doing the PAC proud, just in like a different way and a different grind. But yeah, USC is going to be back for sure.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned it, right? The next team we're going to talk about is up in Salt Lake. Kyle Whittingham's Utah Utes. They were a hell of a story last year, right? Started the season out 1-2, but then Cam Rising comes in to play quarterback, and they absolutely turned it on, right? They blew through the rest of the year, really only losing to Oregon State along the way, and then meeting up with Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. And that Ohio State team was definitely a team that looked every part of a national contender pretty much all season, and they were giving them the business most of the game. They ended up losing 45-48 because Ohio State's wide receivers went insane at the end of the game. But man, you talk about a team that doesn't recruit at a very high level. They just kind of stick to their guns, recruit the guys that they know fit the system. Kyle Whittingham's been there forever, ever since Urban Meyer left. And they just recruit the state of Utah really well. They get the guys in California, Arizona, Texas, whatever, that fit the system, and they just put together a well-oiled machine. They have been, I wouldn't call it a powerhouse, but a very, very good team ever since they joined the Pac-12. And with them finishing 10-4 last year, I could definitely see them improving upon that record because they didn't lose a whole lot, right? Now, they did lose Devin Lloyd, who's probably the best defensive player that they have ever had. He's an incredible linebacker. They lose Mika Tafua at defensive end and Nick Ford on the offensive line. But like I said, they still have Cam Rising. They have Tavion Thomas at running back, Clark Phillips III at corner, and they had a pretty decent recruiting class in terms of Utah. So this is a team that could definitely come in and make some real noise. Now they start the season out with a game at Florida, which should be really fun. Pac-12 against SEC. If they win that game, it's going to put a lot of eyes on the Pac-12, which I'm definitely hoping for. And then the rest of the year, they don't have a real tough schedule. They do play USC and UCLA, but outside of that, they don't play Oregon. They don't play Washington. Oh, they do actually play Oregon. They play Oregon at the end of the year, but still relatively a pretty easy schedule. I'm pulling for Utah because any kind of real eyes on the conference is good eyes, right? So Utah, I'm pulling for you. I think they could definitely be a very, very good team next year.
Yeah, they're like a classic, like just embody like who the coach is. Like it's really ingrained in their program. You just see, like when you watch Utah, there's a very identifiable brand of football. So they're just tough through and through. And there's not like a lot of guys that just jump off the page at you, or jump off the screen at you, I should say. I guess I was reading the football game, but jump off the screen at you in terms of, wow, that's like an incredible talent. But they're just tough, and they just hit you in the mouth, and they play like good, disciplined football, and they just stick with it. And like you mentioned, they can play. I mean, the fact that they can play with Ohio State, I mean, we're talking about Ohio State, like you just go ahead and put them in the playoff, right? And Utah just hangs tough with them. And that's what they're going to do, and they're going to grind all year. And it seems like they always they haven't had quite that season where they really break through and make the playoff, where they've been able to keep it clean all year. They seem to get snake bitten at some point, but it's a real good program. It's hard to say anything bad, and it definitely will be awesome to see them traveling to the Swamp to play that game early in the season. I mean, that's why college football is so great. It's so they probably scheduled that game 10 years ago, first of all. So Florida had probably no idea what they were signing up for. And then now you get Utah coming to the Swamp to the beginning to start, some poor soul's season. And it's that's a tough game to have, even though obviously Florida's got the advantage of being at home, but what a tough game from both teams. Utah probably knew exactly what they're doing. Although now if they knew that they might have a chance to run the table, would they schedule that game? I don't know. But this is why college football is the best, because you get Utah and Florida, and those two schools should never see each other, but them being together is going to be the best, right? That's going to be such an awesome, interesting game. And yeah, Utah's going to be good, man. But I just love college. You say Utah and Florida, and I'm just what a stupid, weird game. I love it. Sign me up for all of that, because Utah people and Florida people hanging out together, I would just go and watch the fans. If you told me I couldn't watch any of the game, I would still sign up for that.
Hell yeah, dude. Absolutely. I mean, I think Utah is favored to win the Pac-12 based on last year. I think that Utah USC game is going to be absolutely incredible. Cam Rising, I don't want to just gloss over him. He's a very, very talented quarterback. He completely turned that program around last year. So it's going to be fun to see if he can replicate that this year. But yeah, man, that's the Pac-12. After listening to all that, I think, I'm going to stick to my guns. I think Utah comes out of the South. I think Oregon comes out of the North, similar to last year. And I think probably, Utah wins the Pac-12 next year. And, if they play their cards right, they could have a seat at the table for the playoff. Because, hey, if you go in 11-2, it's tough to keep a team off the playoff with a record like that, for sure. So do I think they're going to win the national championship? Absolutely not. But they're going to put up a good fight, and they're going to be a fun team. And like I said, those battles with USC, I cannot wait to see that. So what are your thoughts, John? What do you think is going on with the Pac-12?
Yeah, and so I'm in agreement with you. I honestly think it's going to be exactly who we think it is. The three big players are going to be Utah, USC, and Oregon, not in any particular order. And I kind of lean towards Utah's going to pull this out, man. They have the experience, they have the continuity in their program. And so at the end of the day, if there is any sort of chance at a representative in the college football playoff, if we're going to see anybody that's a dominant force and a team that kind of flies the Pac-12 flag, I would anticipate it being Utah, and I would just give an outside chance to USC and Oregon to maybe make a run. And, if they can make some hay off beating Utah, and then maybe they can prop themselves ahead. But I would expect Utah just based on they've been here before. They have a program that's established. I would bet on them as opposed to a couple of first-time coaches, although sometimes you get some juice from that. But kind of just to bring it full circle, man, I'm just excited to have a Pac-12 season. I'm just going to kind of hang on to it dearly, because we may only get one or two of these, or, for all I know, USC is moving out mid-season. I'm not really sure how this whole thing works, but with whatever we got left, I'm just going to try to enjoy it. We might only get to see them trot out that Buffalo so many more times. Are we still connected to Washington State's flag, going flying at, college game day first thing in the morning? Are those still Pac-12 things? Are those things that are still connected to the programs that I follow, or is this it? So if it's it, I'm holding on. I'm enjoying the ride, and hopefully we get a good, fun season from the Pac-12. And honestly, for whatever the conference has ever been, it's always been fun.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, it's been a really fun preview of the Pac-12 season. I know I'm excited for the last few runs of the conference. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of fireworks this season. Hopefully this next week we will get somebody lined up for our next preview of our next conference. We will update you guys as we go. If we get somebody that we will interview. We'll throw it on the Twitter. So be checking the socials, the Instagram, the Twitter, the Facebook, and now even TikTok. We're out there as well. You can follow us on TikTok at Dugan Football. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. The ratings help us so much. So please help us out and give us a 5-star if you think we deserve it. Outside of that, guys, we will be back at you next week. And thank you for listening. Bye.